more people on the Egypt panel, but I think there's still a coffee break, so, but I think we have to get started. Very hot topic, exciting topic, Egypt, everybody talks about it. Well, I would like to, just before introducing this distinguished panel, and we have indeed a very good combination here of expertise from all key areas, I would like to start setting the scene a little bit on Egypt from a macroeconomic point of view. So Egypt, I think in the MENA region here, on the African continent, is obviously a country of extreme importance, having gone through 3 quite painful years after the revolution. But the change has been dramatic since last year. So the potential, generally speaking, 90 million people, obviously the link between Maghreb and Mashrek, also from an interconnection point of view, there will be the first high voltage current line between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, linking the countries with a 3 gigawatt power grid capacity, partly under the Red Sea. This will be operational in 2018, so the planning phase has been completed. This is also a very important aspect. So I think for this stabilization since last year, the GCC support was crucial. So I think here the UAE and other GCC countries from Saudi, Kuwait, they're all supporting massively, which is a very crucial factor. Infrastructure, many have heard about the Suez Canal, which was funded in record speed, but which will also be completed in export speed, and which is obviously a major factor for foreign currency revenue. And this is quite impressive. And also, I think in this stabilization since last year, there were not only plans and MOUs, but I think the fact that last year in June, Egypt started to massively cut fossil fuel subsidies has a dramatic impact well beyond Egypt. So what happened is that the petrol price was increased by 78% from one day to the other. Same on the electricity price. So this has a very important effect. The fossil fuel subsidies only in Egypt was $6 billion US approximately. That's more than education and healthcare combined. So I think this will contribute to bring the country on the right path. And then also, Sharm el-Sheikh was a huge conference in March. This was like really the showcase, the big show of President Sisi to bring back the attention and really bring in international investors. So there was tens of billions of dollars of MOU signed, but I think it is now important to see that these MOUs are indeed transferring in concrete contracts. For example, last week, Sisi was in Berlin, and the single largest order in the history of Siemens was signed. So we're not talking about MOUs anymore, it's contracts, and we're talking about 16 gigawatts, mainly of CCGT plants, but also 2 gigawatt wind. So this is quite exciting. Now, on the energy sector, Egypt has lived through the most dramatic energy crisis probably last summer. There was frequent load shedding, there was days of entire outage. So talking to my contacts, Egypt, this was quite dramatic, and I lived it also by my own. Can you imagine in summer, no AC, not even lift, you cannot charge your phone, there's no computer, so this energy crisis caused a massive damage to the economy. And obviously it's also a matter of the stabilization of the country. But this is being resolved now. We'll talk about the emergency program, we'll talk about the significant tangible improvements for this summer. And this summer already will be much, much better. On the energy side, I think it is probably the most exciting country on the continent. We are here talking about Africa to invest. I would like to quote the CEO of Aqua Power, Penny Badmanathan. He was talking in the panel day before yesterday about 40,000 megawatts to be added in the next 5 years. So this is a huge opportunity. So generally the energy system needs to be boosted. On the renewable energy, I think it is important that Egypt has a very balanced plan now. So it will not only be conventional renewables, I think Egypt has a very thorough plan on energy mix in the years to come. But renewable is obviously a topic specifically people are talking about, because Egypt is not only blessed by good gas resources, so significant player in the gas sector, a little bit oil, but has world-class solar and wind conditions. So Zafarana is one of the best wind spots worldwide, 11 meters per second average wind speed, it's just amazing, and same with solar radiation. So it is fantastic to see that Egypt is embracing these opportunities now, also to finally deploy solar on a massive scale. And I think the solar and wind program, we are talking about 4.3 gigawatts of capacity in the first regulatory period, 2017. This is really impressive. We talk about this program on a panel. The tangible progress is really impressive, and we'll hear the comments here. But I would like to just briefly introduce our panelists and then give everybody the opportunity to make a brief introductory statement before kicking off the discussion. So I think we have a very distinguished panel here, starting with Chris, CEO from Lekela. Lekela is a recently established venture between Mainstream, which is very well known for us, mainly from wind, but also from solar energy, and Actis, one of the largest, the most important investment funds based in London. Emmanuel is heading the Energy Infrastructure and Mines Division at Abaco, the French development arm of the French Development Bank, the private arm, like the IFC for World Bank. Marwan is here, based out of the Middle East, responsible for the whole Middle East practice of Sherman Sterling, and involved in many interesting issues here in the region on the transaction side, but also energy and with sovereign wealth funds. We have Mohamed Kana Holdings, which is a major player in the Egyptian energy sector, for example, owning also Taka Arabia, which is a permanent energy group, and owned formerly the former name was Citadel Capital, a very permanent investor. And last but not least, we have Yusuf here, Executive Director from Aqua Power, and I think Aqua Power do not need to introduce. So I would like to start giving everybody, as I mentioned, the opportunity to comment a little bit on the view, and if you want to introduce some points on your role or your company's role in the Egyptian power sector.
Should I start? Okay, good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here this morning. Just arrived actually yesterday night or this morning back from Egypt, where I was talking about renewable power in Egypt and how we look at this. As Cornelius mentioned, we are focused on renewable power. Lekela is about renewable power only, solar and wind. And we do see Egypt as being, together with South Africa, actually the key markets for renewable power. And why? I think there's a combination of things. One is this ambitious but still very realistic program that the government has. And Cornelius mentioned just in the first regional state period, so until actually 2022, they would like to install about 20% of their energy mix to come from renewable power. But this is just the first step. The longer term, the medium and longer term targets, according to Dr. Sofki, who's the chairman of NREA, the UN Renewable Energy Agency in Egypt, is such that by 2035 they would like to go up to 40% of renewables in the energy mix, and by 2050 to 60% in renewables. And so there's a clear focus to go into that direction. Why? Cornelius mentioned it already. It has one of the best renewable resources that you can have, not only in this continent, as a matter of fact, but worldwide. It has abundance of land, and so we do. And lastly, I think importantly, is that we're hearing throughout these conferences that the renewable power has now reached parity with other generation types of conventional generation. And if you have been following the situation in Egypt, there was just recently a bid for Kabbalah Say, 250 megawatts wind, where the lowest tariffs, part of that, proud to be part of that, were at 4 cents per kilowatt hour. This is unheard of anywhere in the world. And maybe apart from the United States, you probably are aware in the United States you get a lot of tax benefits there. But on a purely commercial basis, it's the best type of tariffs you can have. And of course, what played into this, it didn't come by itself. What played into this is clearly the resources, the natural resources the wind resources that Egypt has, particularly in the Gulf of Suez, coupled with the amount, we're talking about 250 megawatts, which is quite massive for a wind project. And then, of course, also coupled with the advances that renewable energy, and in this particular case, wind power, has made. So actually the prices have fallen quite dramatically. And if you put all of this together, you come out with a very, very competitive price. And in addition to that, as you may be aware, Egypt has various ways of moving into renewable power. The one is, this BOO and tendering process that they're doing. The other one is the FIT program, the feed-in tariff program, where again we are part of it. We have just last week signed our 2 MOUs. I mean, they're stronger than what the name suggests, because you get your land allocation, and we've been proud to have received our 2 plots of land, 50 megawatt solar, 50 megawatt wind. And yes, it's true, the FIT program is not yet completely done. There's still certain uncertainties there, but it's based on a first come, first serve. So the guys who are brave, they're probably the ones who are going to win, and that's why, from our perspective, we went in there and secured our sites, and we are in discussions also with other parties to do even more than that. And then you have the third way of going into the business, renewable business in Egypt, and this is bilateral agreements, like it was mentioned with Siemens the other day, 2 gigawatts of bilaterals only in the renewable power, in addition to the 14 gigawatts in conventional power. So all of this tells us at least that this is an important market, and that the government is walking the talk. And if you were sitting here maybe half a year ago or a year ago, people would be quite desperate about Egypt and how things are going. But as Cornelius said, what we have seen is an amazing change in the last 6 months, where they have been really walking the talk. The government has been walking the talk with the institutions as well. But they've come out with the investment law, they're coming out now with a new VAT law. They come out with one-stop shop processes on how to entice the business into Egypt. And from our perspective, from Lekela, the 60% owner of Lekela is Actis, fund. And you may know that Actis has been there already for 10 years in Egypt. Actis has been doing $500 million already in 6 investments, starting from CD3 10 years back, but also into other industries. So we've gone through the ups and downs in Egypt, and we have, remained there even during the, let's say, more difficult and challenging times. So for us, despite the fact that not everything is clear on how the program is going to go ahead, we are quite confident in the market, we're confident in the government, and I think we are not the only ones. You see, of course, the credit agencies increasing the credit of Egyptian debt, and as Cornelius mentioned, all these investments flowing in right now, billions and billions of investments. Of course, it doesn't come, by coincidence. It is based on the program and based on the confidence that the current government under President al-Sisi is instilling into the international and European investors.
Very good, thank you so much, Chris. Exciting, it's an important player, and it's nice to see the trust in the market. Emmanuel, you have been involved and you have been spearheading with the IFC EBRD, the solar program in Jordan in round 1. How do you see the country, and would you be comfortable providing debt or maybe equity to power projects in Egypt?
Thank you for this invitation. Editorial program is very involved in the promoting of renewable energy financing everywhere. And the idea for development agency, development banks has always been to try to promote and to support the first project to be done, the first renewable project we made in finance, the first solar power plant, for instance, in the Latin American continent, that was in Peru for solar power plant. We made that in Chile afterwards, and last year we've been pretty happy to support 3 of the first round solar round in Jordan, which has been pretty successful. And we see that the second round is very competitive and very trusting the good success of this first round. In Egypt, it is very natural for us to come in this country. I mean, our parent company, French Development Agency, is there for ages, supporting, acting as the bilateral institution, supporting the government in conducting the reform at the level of the sector. And I must admit that I'm involved in this kind of sectors in different countries, and I'm very amazed to see that how Egypt has taken the thing very seriously, how the plan, the 7th plan that has been implemented or forecasted last year has started to be implemented already. Of course, there are still a lot of challenges to be overcome. The main ones is related to subsidies that needs to be reduced, but already the tariffs have been taken into consideration. Yet some subsidies have been decreased, although there is still things to be done, with a way and a true conscience of the government to support as well the industrial that will have to face increase in pricing, to provide them as well with solutions and energy efficiency, which needs to be handled and to be set up as well in the country. So yes, we are confident. We're very pleased to see how Egypt is evolving and how they are taking that seriously. Of course, again, there are some challenges are remaining. The grid is one of the key challenges, but as well the necessity to go on reforming the governance of all the sectors. But steps are started, and we will be keen to support the development of. On our case, it will be reviewable because we need to make some choices, and that, as you maybe aware that this year there will be the COP22, 21st in Paris, and we are very, as French, as representative of the French government or French authorities, we are very involved in this year in climate change and renewables. And we see that development banks will still be needed initially to support those feed-in tariffs or to support bio projects in order for them to attract banks that will come just after, or along with us, of course, if any. That said, we commented it briefly separately. There are still questions on the convertibility, and we are still, although discussions with EBRD, AFC, and Egyptian authorities are moving well with respect to getting PPAs and project documentations which are bankable. Yeah, there are still discussions around this convertibility topic and matter, but I'm quite confident that we will find a way to accommodate our credit, internal credit departments to move ahead, and Egyptian authorities to take into account as well that in order to attract massive financings in terms of debt, but as well in equity, they will need to take that into consideration. Otherwise, they will just have multilateral being in a position to lend. Everybody needs to be comfortable with the way that this convertibility risk will have to be covered.
Fantastic, yeah. Another very positive voice. It's nice to hear, and also keen supporter on renewables, and we worked together for round 2 in Jordan, so it was very good. Well, Marwan is, let's say, a local based here in the region, and I think has a very interesting view, and maybe can comment a little bit on the flow of capital, because as I mentioned in my introduction, I think the GCC countries play a crucial role in providing capital for the stabilization and for putting the balance of payments back in shape of Egypt. I think also very important topic you might be wanting to comment on is the legal framework, the contractual framework. I think Penny Patmanathan, he stressed the fact that Egypt has a very good track record on the IPP side in fulfilling payment commitments on the conventional side, which makes us being involved in the renewable energy program very comfortable as well. So please, Marwan.
Great, thank you very much. I think very positive views. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. So the lawyer's job is really identifying the risk and trying to manage it. And so if you look at a 30,000-foot level, what do you see in Egypt? You don't see a government that's trying to nationalize, take assets from people. It's a very, very pro-business environment, very pro-investment environment. I think what Egypt is going through, though, is dislocation, economic dislocation, that was probably predated the revolution, but was exacerbated by it. In particular, on the macro side, the balance of payments, we talked about that. That's certainly an issue for Egypt. You have the fiscal deficit, which is still kind of very high by any standard that the governments are working to improve, including steps on the subsidies. And then you have the issue of feedstock, production levels for oil and gas, and therefore is there enough feedstock to go around to industry, to power generation, petrochemicals, fertilizers, etc. So when you look at the picture, you find those are the types of risks that I find clients